Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Classic Gamer 74. I'm your host, Anthony Gamer, along with my friend Larry. Larry is me, Larry the Lion, and live via Skype, our friend Mumford. How do I use this thing? And today we're going to be discussing board games. At the conclusion of my previous episode, I asked, why would you want to play a board game in video game format? Well, the reason is obvious. And what is that reason, Mumford? I don't remember. I'll tell you, the answer is because you don't want to lose the pieces. Because if you lose some of the pieces, you can't play the game. Exactly. Now think back to when you were a kid and you were playing some of your favorite board games with your brother and your sister. And you or them won the game, and whoever lost the game would usually get mad and throw the board game across the room, and some of the pieces will get lost. Well, if you play it in a video game format, you don't have to worry about that. I mean, just look at all the pieces for Monopoly. You see it right there on your screen. I remember back when I was a boy and we used to play Monopoly, and we just lost some of the pieces just from moving or whatever, and we would have to substitute sometimes with bottle caps. And we didn't complain. And I remember one time we lost some of the play money and we used some of my real money, and I never got it back. Well, thanks for sharing, Mumford. And again, those are other good reasons why it is sometimes a better idea to play board games in video game format. And obviously the folks at Atari figured that out too, so that's why they created the first game we're going to discuss today, Video Checkers, from 1978, programmed by Carol Shaw. The game of checkers itself has been around for over 5,000 years and is known in other parts of the world as draughts. The game is quite simple. You are moving forward with these checkers or pieces, and you're trying to jump over your opponent and eliminate their pieces by doing so. And, of course, early in the game, the pieces can only move forward. When you get to the other side of the board on your opponent's side, you tell them to king me, and they put another checker on top of your checker of the same color, and then you can move your pieces diagonally in any direction you want. The particular version that was made by Carol Shaw has 1 to 2 players with various degrees of difficulty. And one of the interesting aspects of this game is that if you can jump a player on this game, you have to do it. So no chance of being nice against the computer, because they certainly aren't going to be nice to you. Not to be outdone by Atari, 2 years later, Intellivision came out with their own version of checkers. 1 to 2 players, just like the Atari, with high skill or low skill. One of the things I liked about this version over the Atari version is the vibrant colors, the cool sound effects, and the realism that when your piece gets eliminated, it moves off the side of the board. Really enjoyed this game. I played it quite a bit, but it was actually more fun to play against some of the people at the retirement home where I live, because sometimes they fall asleep and I can move their pieces. I sincerely hope nobody from the home is watching this video, or else you're going to be in trouble. Anyway, that same year, in 1980, Activision came out with their own version of checkers, simply called Checkers, programmed by Alan Miller. This version isn't as nice as the Intellivision version, as it's actually kind of a graphic improvement of the Atari 2600 version. When you're playing against the computer, the screen goes blank for a second while the computer's thinking, just like the 2600 version. Yet, it's still a pretty fun game, especially for those of us who just love to play checkers. Would you say that checkers was the very first board game you ever learned as a child, Larry? Probably, although I would have to say that a game that we're going to talk about later probably was actually the first game I learned, if not the second. Usually when you purchase a family home game set, I guess that's a good term for it. Yeah, that's what you call them. Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, I just kind of trying to find the best term. Anyway, when you purchase those, usually it would have checkers and the game chess. Well, the first chess game to ever be programmed for a home video game system was video chess that was programmed in 1978 by Bob Whitehead. Chess is thought to date back to the 6th century BC in the country of India, and was brought to the United Kingdom or England in the early part of the Middle Ages. The game chess itself is probably one of the first strategy games. In this particular game, you have a series of pieces that move in a series of directions, and your object is to eliminate your opponent's pieces, and whoever can eliminate the king is declared the winner. There are clubs around the world and tournaments to this day that are still being held by people that enjoy playing this game. I learned to play chess when I was quite young, and when I was an elementary school teacher, when I taught upper elementary, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, I used to teach the kids to play. So chess has always been one of my favorite games and will always hold a special place in my heart. That's beautiful. Yeah, I thought so. Now, if you're a big chess fan and would like to see the game get a little more exciting, you would like to play this. This is Battle Chess, and it was released in 1988 by Interplay. In this particular version of chess, it follows all the rules and all the typical strategies that you would use in regular chess, except for in this particular version, the pieces actually battle and kill each other. It's got a lot of senseless violence and screams of agony and all that fun stuff. So this is definitely a game you will want to check out. If you'd like to see us play this game all the way through, head over to our Facebook page and you can watch me and Anthony totally obliterate each other. Oh yeah, this game was definitely way ahead of its time and was something that chess players really were looking for. And for people that had considered chess to be boring, this was definitely right up their alley. This particular version you're looking at was released on MS-DOS, as he said, in 1988. It was also released for just about every computer from that time period and for the NES, and has been remade several times since. Alright, next up we have Othello. This particular version of the game was released on the Atari 2600 in 1978 and was programmed by Ed Logg. The original game was called Reversi, and it was created by two gentlemen who have been pretty much calling each other a fraud and trying to take credit for it, and that was Lewis Waterman or a gentleman named John Mollett in 1883. In 1971, a Japanese gentleman by the name of Goro Hasagura trademarked the name Othello. Now, the name Othello itself comes from the Shakespeare play. In this particular game, the object is to use your checker pieces, I guess that's what you'd call them. Yeah, I mean, technically, yeah. And you would put a piece on each end of your opponent and try to turn their pieces into your color. It's a really fun game. I totally agree. I had never played this game before, and when I just purchased a new 2600 from a gentleman that I met on Atari Age, he threw in the cartridge of Othello, and once I started playing it, I couldn't get enough of it. Talk about an addictive game. It is really one of, I guess you could say, a lost classic, but to be honest, probably only a lost classic for me, as I'm sure other people have been playing this game for like years, and I just now discovered it. But like I said, really an addictive game. If you're going to play against somebody, I would recommend playing it in the video game format, because this is a game that I'm sure lots of cheating could be done, and if you play in the video game format, you don't really have to worry about that. In 1982, Intellivision released their own version, which they used the original name of Reversi. Like the Atari 2600 version, you can pick board size, 1 to 2 players, and skill level. Pretty much, again, the same game. Pretty cool sound effects, bright colors, typical what you would expect from Intellivision. Alright, next up we have Monopoly. Of course, you knew this was coming. Oh yeah. Now, Monopoly was originally based on a game that was released in 1903 called Landlord's Game by a lady named Lizzie Meiji. In 1934, a gentleman by the name of Charles Darrow took the game and added his own little touches to it and called the game Monopoly. In 1935, he sold the rights to Parker Brothers, which is now Hasbro. The game is pretty interesting. You are moving around the board and you are trying to buy up as many properties as you can. When you get all the properties of a particular color, you can start putting houses and then eventually hotels on it. And when your opponent lands on a property that you own, you get money from them, depending on how many homes, houses, or hotels you have on the property and where the property is located. Everybody's goal is to get Park Place and Boardwalk because those are the biggest properties in the entire game. Yeah, you said it exactly. Although, to be honest, I've actually won the game without getting those two properties. Not very often, but it has happened. You have other cards like Chance and Community Chest that can either help you get more money or cause you to lose a turn or go to jail or get out of jail free card. What you're looking at right here is me playing against the computer on the NES version of the game. A very fun version of the game, I have to say, and I believe it was actually the first, for lack of a better term, a port of this board game. However, I have to say that the best version of Monopoly was this version, the PC version that was released in 1995 by Westwood. Oh yeah, Westwood made just amazing games. We will talk about the Command & Conquer series in a later video, but the graphics and just the way the game came to life in this 3D format was just amazing, especially to see some of these properties that you bought, in the past, watching the pieces move, and it's just a whole lot of fun. Yeah, and best of all, I won! Yeah, you did. Okay, don't rub it in. If you'd like to see this game played in its entirety, and we played for almost an hour and a half, head over to our Facebook page and you can watch myself, Mumford, and Larry play this game in its entirety. Alright, next up we have Game of Life, or simply known as Life. This game was created in 1860 by a gentleman named Bill Markham and was released by Milton Bradley. In this particular game, you are going through basically life period. Starting with your adult years, you have the choice of going to college or a career, you get married, you have children, you have ups and downs, financial windfalls, financial losses, and ultimately you retire. So the object of the game is to retire with the most assets and the most money. Yeah, and you would say sometimes with the most kids. Yeah, we both, when Larry and I played this, we both ended up with quite a few kids. Yeah, just like in real life. Yeah, but anyway, this particular version was a PC version, and it was released in 1998 by Hasbro Interactive. Really a fun game, a board game that I played quite a bit as a kid, even though, didn't really realize, all the things in the game that, I would eventually face sometime. Definitely one of the best board games I've ever played, and I have to tell you that this enhanced version is really cool. The way you see the little cartoons and the characters' big heads, it's hilarious. And on the same disc, they also have an even more enhanced version that has some really cool sub-games as well. Recently, a version of this was released for Android, so if you get a chance, check it out.
5.
Next up, we have Chutes and Ladders. Larry, was this the game you were talking about earlier when you said your first game you ever learned to play? Yep, it sure was. Did you play with your daughter? Oh yeah, of course I did. Now, this game was actually based on an ancient Indian game called Snakes and Ladders. In 1943, Milton Bradley purchased the game and released it, to the rest of the world. In the original version, you use dice, but in the Milton Bradley version, you have the spinner. The object of the game is to try to get to 100 at the top. Now, as you move along, you will either go up ladders or you will actually fall down chutes. So you could actually be pretty far into the game and then end up sliding right back down to the bottom. One of the interesting aspects of the board game is in some versions it shows kids doing good things and they're rewarded by going up the ladder, and then it shows kids doing bad things which causes them to go down. We have to have at least one prototype in our list today, and that is Boggle. From 1978, it was intended for the Atari 2600 and was programmed by David Crane. Now, the game Boggle was actually created in 1972 by two gentlemen named Bill Cook and Alan Taroff. Now, a few years later, Atari was going to make their own version of the game. Now, unfortunately, the game was not released, and the version that is out there needs a little bit of work, but it is pretty playable. Now, the rules of Boggle are you have the series of 16 letters, and you are trying to make words out of these letters. You take a letter, and you use the letters close by in, either horizontally, vertically, or diagonally, and you try to make words that are at least 3 letters long. This game was pretty much made famous from King of the Hill, as Peggy Hill was a state champion Boggle player. But anyway, as I said, this is a fully functional and playable game. However, there are a few goofs. One, sometimes you have to hit the reset button a couple times because not all the letters will pop up. Also, don't forget that there is a particular cube. Well, in the real life, a cube, it'll come up as QU, since in the English language we have to have Q and U together for the most part, for most words. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that this does not have a built-in dictionary, so it is possible to make up words, so you got to really watch your opponent here and make sure they're not cheating. Also, make sure that they're not using the same word twice or using a word that you used. So, like I said, a little bit of tweaks needed to be done for this, but yet overall it is a fully functional game and really a fun game to play. And if you'd like to get the ROM of this game and try it out yourself, there's only one place to get it, and that is AtariAge.com. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode of Classic Gamer 74. I hope you enjoyed it. We sure had fun. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. How do they do that? It's at the bottom of the screen under our video. Oh, okay. You gotta show me that sometime. Also, please consider becoming a Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can help this channel to grow. Also, we will be having an exclusive podcast to our Patreons on our page. So, we will have information about that in the coming weeks. In our next episode, we will be discussing more Atari 2600 prototypes, so you will not want to miss that one. Well, until next time, this is Anthony Gamer. For Larry the Lion and Mumford, we will see you all in the next episode. Until then, have yourselves a great day. Goodbye.